So, a channel is someone who receives divine guidance, messages, or information from different consciousnesses, or different galactic beings, angelic beings, source itself. They have entities around them who are essentially just using them as an energy source, and they're feeding them negative thoughts. That money is consciousness, like changing yourself to see that all perspectives are valid, because all perspectives are really just consciousness exploring its own possibility. Somebody's resentful or depressed, anger is actually a step up on that vibrational scale. My guides have taught me sometimes you need your ego.
Does a true masculine man need violence? Or when is it necessary, is the question I would be asking.
Please don't feed the demons. They get big and you only see them. Please don't feed the demons. Accepting them is the only way to defeat them.
What is the crack? Welcome back to my channel. We're on Empty Space, or on Empty Space, in Empty Space, the podcast where you can fill it with what you want. And today I'm joined by Erin, who is a cosmic channel and a quantum healer. How are you?
I am doing well. How are you?
Sure, I'm flying it. What I want to do to start it off is I would like people to grasp what it is that you do. So could you explain what a channel is?
Sure. So a channel is someone who receives divine guidance, messages, or information from different consciousnesses, or different galactic beings, angelic beings, source itself. Different channels have different capacity. So like people who refer to themselves as shamans, they can channel like plants and animals, like that's their thing. For me specifically, I channel different galactic beings. I channel source. I can channel different consciousnesses, and the angelic realm. So it's different for every channel.
That is savage. That is class, right? What would you say to someone who is skeptical of that kind of conversation?
Well, the first thing is to realize that we all channel. Some people, such as myself, have sort of signed up like a soul contract to play this particular role, to be a channel and to be able to directly communicate. But spirit is always communicating with you, whether it's through a song or a movie or another person, or like really when you're in flow doing something that you really enjoy, you're channeling. Like if someone's an artist or a musician, you might be able to relate to this, where you know this, like this divine inspiration that you're receiving is not just coming from you, it's coming from something higher than you, from something else. So we all channel. We do it in different ways.
And what if someone isn't doing it from a joyful place? Are you still channeling? Or what is it that you're channeling then?
So the information that you're channeling is usually based on the frequency that you're on. So you can channel from lower energy sources, lower energy beings that are basically transmuting like negative thoughts. Yeah, you can absolutely do that. That's actually what most people are doing when they're in depression or these lower states of being. A lot of the times they have, I don't want to get too deep into this, but they have entities around them who are essentially just using them as an energy source, and they're feeding them negative thoughts, just overall negativity that keeps them in that low vibrational state.
And what can someone do then if they catch themselves in that? How can they get themselves out of that? I imagine it's a big process.
Right. It's not something you're going to just, wake up tomorrow morning and it's like, I could pull myself out of this. But the first step is just awareness, awareness and being compassionate within that awareness. Because when you can see something, right, you recognize, okay, because I can see it, that means that I am not it. Once you realize that you are not it, so you're not that negative thought that you're thinking, you're not that just shitty perspective that you're having on yourself and your life in this moment, but you are just the observer of that, and you can work to change it.
Savage. You put it into great words, because these are experiences that I've had myself. So it's nice to hear it come up somewhere else's mouth.
Mhm.
because it's a reaffirmation of what you know. So it's for me, it's like, yeah, yeah, I kind of
Right.
thought that. I kind of thought, and just remembered as well about when you were telling the story. When I was watching your Instagram, and you were talking about Jesus and his message, and I get back to that later on again. But what you were telling the story of, he was an enlightened man with a message, and then it got misconstrued over time.
Mhm. Mhm.
I remember saying that about 10 years ago to somebody, saying, I think he was just an enlightened man like Buddha or something.
Exactly.
And the message got lost in translation because other people couldn't perceive it from their own level of consciousness, or couldn't perceive it from his level of consciousness because they weren't there.
Exactly.
So they kind of took it and turned it into something it wasn't, essentially.
Jesus was a channeler. He was connected to the spirit realm. He was connected to source. So he was always channeling information.
Yeah, that's kind of the,
That's basically what he was, an enlightened being in a channel.
yeah, that's savage. Okay, we'll get back into that later on, right? So I have a lot of questions here that I want to ask.
Let's get into it.
So the first thing that struck me when I was watching it was you were saying that lack is an illusion.
Oh, yes, man. That's my favorite thing to talk about.
And I actually laughed out loud because I was like, that's hilarious, man. There's definitely a stand-up comedy set in that. That lack is an illusion because when you have a lack, there's an abundance of lack. Therefore, it's not.
There's only
a
abundance.
lack.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Isn't that hilarious though? It's like, wow, even when I perceive myself to lack something, I still have an abundance of that experience of lack. It's like this inescapable abundance now. Like that's how you see it. Like
Like I'm
shit.
actually
Like,
really good at manifesting. I'm actually really good at it, like, because there's
yeah,
lots of
exactly.
lack.
Exactly.
How? Okay, here's a question born out of that. Then, if someone is in that lack, what's the first step that they should take to shift it and turn it into?
So with lack, you have to understand that you perceive yourself to currently not have something. So lack is all about, in this moment, I am zooming in on one particular thing or a few particular things that I perceive myself not to have in this present moment. But what you have to realize is that on an energetic quantum level, everything exists. Everything is available to you. It's a matter of tuning your frequency to then be able to shift and perceive that thing in your reality. So to make that more simple, I want you guys to think about like a radio station. You're tuned into a certain station, aka a certain frequency. So you're hearing, a certain program, a certain song. When you change the tuner and you turn to a different station, then you're picking up on that frequency and you hear that song. But even when you were listening to that first station in that first song, all of these other infinite like stations existed simultaneously. They existed at the same time. You just weren't tuned into them. So when it comes to lack, you keep recreating this experience of you lacking something because you keep focusing on the fact that you don't have it, as opposed to shifting and saying, oh, let me get in vibrational sync with that which I wish to experience.
I feel that. I did that once with women. I said, I don't want a relationship. I don't want a relationship. I don't want a relationship. And that's all that kept turning up.
Exactly.
People trying. And I was like, well, that is actually hilarious. I kept focusing on the fact that I don't want it. And here it is, keeps presenting itself.
Because you know what was happening? You were saying, I don't want this. And so the universe was saying back to you, okay, you don't want this.
So yeah, there it is.
It's
yeah.
just like reaffirming that state of being of, I don't want this. Okay, well, you're just gonna keep recreating the experience of not wanting it, as opposed to shifting and pivoting and saying, what I do prefer is XYZ. How can I get in alignment with that?
Yes, I feel it. So if let's say there is somebody, which there's probably a lot of people out there right now, they are trying to get a job, which is me as well, and it isn't happening for them, what do you say? Because I know some people would be like, yeah, but if it's not happening, how am I supposed to focus on it happening? Do you know?
Yep.
I mean, that's stupid. Like,
Your preferred job or dream job, right? The job that is most in alignment with you is in what I like to call the vibrational pipeline, meaning that every job that you've had up until this point, you've uncovered things that you liked about that job and things that you don't like about that job. So every time you became aware of something that you would like to experience in your preferred job, the universe is like vibrationally creating this ultimate job that will be in alignment with you. But you have to match the frequency. You have to kind of like start to dissolve that distance between that job is over here and I'm over here. You have to try to merge with that job, and you do that through embodying the frequency of if you already had it. So if you had that job today, how would you feel? That feels totally different than saying, I don't have the job, or I'm looking for a job, or I'm trying to find this job, or there aren't any jobs, or like whatever, right? You realize that no, the job exists. It's me who needs to line up with that opportunity. And there are like tons of different techniques and strategies that I use to align my frequency to things that I want. So we can kind of get into that too.
well, I would say if people want a more in-depth understanding of that, check out your Instagram.
Yes.
Because we could spend the whole
all day. I know.
200 years talking about this kind of. So we'll rifle through the questions. Okay, so right in the whole world right now, money is shifting. The desire around money, or the understanding of money, or our level of consciousness in relationship to money is kind of shifting, right? And we can see this happening. And one example for me where I could really see it was, I don't know if you were aware, but a bunch of American owners tried to, a bunch of American owners who bought football clubs in England tried to create a super league, and behind everyone's back, right? So you're thinking, how does this talk about moving past the illusion of money? So one thing you cannot take away from a man is his favorite football team. So for years, behind everyone's back, these people, because they have money and because they had come from a system of sports in America where it's business and franchise, came over to the English football where it's not franchise. It's there's a whole tier. So I'll explain the fundamental difference is in franchise, you can't get relegated. So you can't get knocked out of the league. You can't go down or you can't go up. So you can lose and you still make money every year.
Okay.
But the English model is if you come in the final three in the Premier League, you get knocked down to the championship level. And if you come in the final three in the championship, you get knocked down to the first division. And that keeps going down. So that means that if you wanted to create a football team, you could start in the 9th tier and you could end up the whole way up the top, making the big money. So there's hope. Right. So this is where it ties in. Everyone's hopes and dreams as a young boy is to play for a big club or the club that they grew up around or where they're from, right? So these guys tried to create a super league where they took the 6 teams in England, 2 teams in Italy, 2 teams in Spain, and 2 more teams or 3 more teams from another country. Take them out of their leagues and put them in one super league because it makes money for them. Nobody wanted it. The only people that wanted it were the people that had money. Now, loads of men around the world were depressed and scared, but they actually came together to make a change. And all of the conversation that was going on was the fact that greed and money is not the way forward because heart is what should lead. That was what the conversation was. people in the media. Like, think about the amount of men that watch football. The conversation they were talking about was a righteous, heart-based conversation. I was like, this is unbelievable what's happening right before my eyes. Like, and I was connecting with strangers on Instagram talking about football, and end up getting real deep.
Right.
Because we end up talking about why are we sad? Why are we depressed about this? It's because we identify with it. That's our childhood. And they're trying to take it away because they're greedy. So essentially, the reason I'm saying that is, where else can you see that happening? The illusion is lifting.
I think when it comes to money, you have to see it as being separate from the individual's consciousness that is working with that tool, because it's just a tool, right, for us to exchange goods and resources. And this is something I actually did. I channeled the consciousness of money, and that was really cool. And something that was uncovered was that that money is consciousness, like everything else, like the food that you eat is consciousness. These different things have essentially incarnated to play a certain role for us. Like, most people wouldn't think a planet or the sun or the moon has its own consciousness, but it does, because everything is consciousness. God is consciousness, source is consciousness, that consciousness is within everything. So when we're looking at money as a consciousness in the role that it's here to play, and the divine exchange that it allows us to facilitate, totally different from the beings, depending on their level of consciousness and how they use it. So I think on this planet, we've automatically assumed like money, greed, and like power and all these different things. Like, we associate those things with money, right? But money is actually its own separate thing. It depends on the energy and the intention that somebody is bringing to that tool, because it's really a sacred tool. It's consciousness. So we can exchange goods and services without, like, thousands of years ago, you would have showed up with a chicken, I would have showed up with like a skinned beaver, and we would have been like bartering and like exchanging. Now we have something that's a store of value. Like, that's just what it is, right?
It's convenient.
It's convenient. That was the next step in our evolution. Just like now, getting into digital currencies and all these different things is just a step up in evolution. That's all it is.
I was just going to say it because it looks like, from where I'm sitting, it looks like the monetary system may actually fizzle out. To me, it looks like it might just disappear and get replaced.
We could say that.
Like, with something different, because it looks to me, it just looks like it's running out, or something.
Everything
like
evolves. Everything goes through the process of evolution and shifting, because as we ascend and our vibration rises, we need systems and we need tools that are going to reflect that vibration.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I feel that. Kind of like how we're kind of shifting away from religion as well, I think. I know not everybody, but mainly. More and more people are kind of like, I don't know if I see that the way I used to, or I don't want to offend anyone who does see things. So that's why I'm being careful with my words.
But you know what? I think there's nothing offensive about just stating things the way that you just stated it, because for so long, two people like you and me having this conversation, we could have potentially been burned at the stake. And so we're so subconsciously trained to be like, oh, I don't want to offend this group of people that believe this, because for so long, this group of people have terrorized everybody else because of their beliefs. So the whole point is not to have everybody agree to the same thing, but to just be accepting that other belief systems exist. It's not
100%. Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think that is the spiritual lesson in playing the earth game, if we will, challenging yourself to see that all perspectives are valid, because all perspectives are really just consciousness exploring its own possibility, if that makes sense. So I'm never going to be able to see life through your eyes. You're never going to be able to see life through my eyes. And we could just honor that consciousness is having both of those experiences at the same time, without being like, I'm right and you're wrong in this and that. Because when you do that, you're limiting God's expression.
Savage. I love that, man. I love. The next time someone's trying to tell me they're right, I'm just gonna go, stop limiting God's expression, cuz.
Literally, that's literally what they're doing. Like, you're limiting God when you do that.
It's kind of like how I argue with people is I don't argue. Well, it was a process. It was a process. I had to learn about myself first to be able to do that, but it was a process. It was like,
People get really pissed when you don't argue with them.
yeah, I know. I feel that.
Just sit there in silence and see how they react. They get so upset.
Even worse sometimes. I was dating a girl once and we wanted to have an argument and I just wasn't having it. And I could see her kicking off. I was like, she just wants to have a fight. Like, I'm not going to bother. Like, it's not my thing. And I just didn't respond. And then she just went, so annoying trying to have a fight with you. I just don't want anymore. I tell you, yeah, that's it. Like, it's just not going to work though. I've been.
But go ahead.
On.
I'm sorry.
No, go on.
There's also some beauty and value in it expressing that anger or whatever it is that's arising within you, to just let it out. Like, sometimes it just be in that moment of like experiencing that emotion.
I
because
feel that. Yeah.
Like, it's all a part of the human experience. I mean, of course, as you get more mastered, like self-mastered, you don't have the same response to things, but there can also, I think there's also a such thing as like suppression, and then people like hold in all this stuff, and then that's when they get to this moment where it just like explodes, because they, instead of like honoring that in the moment, they just like kept it inside.
That makes me want to ask you about the dangers of spiritual bypassing.
I think spiritual bypassing is real. I think the way I see it is acknowledging that every aspect of life is beautiful, and instead of like beautiful and valuable in some, like it has something to teach you and show you about yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And when you can just accept that, you won't feel the need to try to like, when you try to bypass something, it's just because you don't want to deal with it, right? You don't want to, you think that you're bypassing it and you're going straight to like this enlightenment, but really you didn't learn how to just like transmute it in the moment by seeing that it was showing you something.
Mm-hmm. I feel that 100 makes sense. It just makes me want to express, like when I was younger, I used to have a very short temper, very short temper, very fast to be like on edge, like, you know, until I started having moments of consciousness where I catch myself. Mm-hmm. And I'd catch myself mid-sentence saying something brutal to someone, and I'd be like, in my head going, why am I saying that? I don't believe that to be true. Why am I saying that? Like, where's that coming from? And then I could trace it back, and I'd be thinking, it actually would sometimes arise and go, it's actually after coming from such and such experience when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. So I'm actually reacting to that rather than the person in front
that
of me.
Was just the trigger, right? The person was just the trigger for what was already there.
Exactly, yeah. I know.
But then you could even say, oh, I'm thankful to this person, this experience, and this anger for showing me this. But like what you did, you went through this whole process. It was like an inner process. So that, like, that's what people need to do, as opposed to just like, I think when you don't go through that process and you try to just go straight to like the peace or like whatever it is that you think you need to embody, you're not going through that process.
Yeah, that's a danger, because I think sometimes people might hear that you need to be compassionate and stuff, and then think that that's the first step that you go to. Whereas for each person, it's different. You might have to be angry first before you get to,
yeah,
you know, or you might have to like punch a wall before you get there.
Exactly. Like my favorite spiritual teacher, Abraham Hicks, they talk about this, and they talk about like this emotional scale, right? Like if somebody's resentful or depressed, anger is actually a step up on that vibrational scale. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because there's movement.
There's some movement. You're like, instead of just like being in this dark place where you just accept being there, anger is almost like, okay, well, I'm pissed about this, or like whatever it was. And then you start to like work through that.
And then at the other end of it, just to relate back to the life story or the lesson, just to tie it up, then I would think then if I had a moment like that, I'd go, how would I react the next time something like that would happen?
Mm-hmm.
What would I do differently?
Mm-hmm.
This is an approach I would take on stage. Do you know, if
Yeah.
there was someone in the audience who was a bit difficult and didn't handle it, I didn't handle it in the way I thought was majestic.
Mm-hmm.
I'd think to myself, how would I handle that better next time?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what would I do better as a human being the next time? What did I
Mm,
fail? What did I fail to miss?
I love that.
And it's honestly, the being on stage in front of an audience has taught me so much in that
But
sense.
I'm going to take it deep now.
Yeah, yeah.
We say that that particular audience that night, or that individual in the audience that challenged you, was your consciousness reflecting itself back to you to show you something that you then had the opportunity to heal and transcend,
Mm-hmm.
because that person was just a reflection of you on some level, right? Or that your interaction with that person showed you something. So we can say that was a gift.
Yeah, that's essentially how I would automatically see things.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that brings you into the whole thing of then like that there's no judgment in anything. The higher perspective you get, there's no judgment.
No judgment.
There is only but understanding.
You know, some people are pissed about that. Like, I would say the religious skeptics are like, when you try to talk about non-judgment, they're like, so you mean to tell me somebody could just go out and kill, like, I don't know, kill a village or something like that, and God has no, like, there's no punishment for that? Because people tend to think that, oh, that means you can do things and then there's no repercussion. But you got to realize that the karma is already built into the whole, system, the whole game, where that energy is going to be returned to you, right? So God doesn't need to judge you, because that the universe is going to balance itself out. You did something to somebody else, and then your soul is going to have to be balanced through experiencing what that feels like, or like that same energy is going to come back to you.
Yeah, I feel that, but like try explain that to a group of people who don't want to hear it.
Yeah, you can't. You can't.
can't.
Honestly, you can't. It's like, whatever.
Like, no, never mind. Never mind. Because non-judgment for me is a big theme in my life, if I was to be real.
Mhm.
Obviously I've had to go through judgments and through being judgmental to figure out why it's not for me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm not saying I'm a perfect human being. I'm saying that's the big theme in my life. It's somewhere I would love to, it's a level of understanding I always want to achieve or desire. And drives my dad crazy sometimes, which is another interesting conversation, because I also understand that that's the relationship between him is reflecting whether or not I'm insecure or secure about it. So
Right. I love that. I love that. I think, or I would say relationships, particularly more so romantic relationships for me, have been a huge source of um like truly practicing non-judgment, because going back to that spiritual ego, right? You're like, oh, I'm so spiritual, I know everything, this and that. But it's like, but if someone says something that is like not in agreement with what you think or how you perceive things, that's when you can truly see, do I really practice non-judgment? Do I really practice radical acceptance, right? Because we get so irritated by things. We're like, I want you to see this my way so bad. Like, I just want you to get this. But it's like that person, and this is why I say I'm a student of everybody that I meet, because though that person might not be consciously aware, they are still acting as a teacher to me in that moment to learn acceptance.
I always say to, well, I always say it, or not I always, I don't go around all the time saying, hey, this. No, you know the way we exaggerate that sometimes. I always say this, it's the only sentence I ever speak. Um, I always say, I'm going to say it again. Someone said to me before, "You're very good at taking criticism. Why is that?" And I said, "Because everyone has something to teach you." I said, a bum on the street, if a homeless guy on the street came up to me and said, "You're a shit human being," I would listen and be like, "Is that true or not? Is this an opportunity for me to understand myself deeper or not? Am I offended or not?"
Right.
And it'll show me where I am at. Like, and then how can I reflect some love back to this guy if that's the case?
Yeah. Because I think it's like not being threatened by the criticism, or whatever it is being reflected in your reality. Because in the end, oh, this is only just going to make me better. This is just going to make me more in alignment with my higher self. This is actually going to empower me. So even though my ego might feel a little hurt, if I could have the inner awareness to see through the opportunity being presented, I can come out of this like 10 times better, and enhance my overall like reality.
There was a lesson I learned this one night when I was in a band, so I was the front man of the band, right? And usually I would always get the audience to link together, and at a certain point of the night I'd always say, "Everybody put your hands in the air. I want you to look to the person beside you, and I want you to tell that person you are fucking class. Even if you don't know them, I want you to tell them." And then they tell them, and then I go, "Now just fucking randomly hug somebody." And you could always see a change in the audience, and nearly all of the time everybody would end up getting involved. But one night there was a guy standing at the front of the stage giving me the finger, and I got triggered because I wasn't expecting it, and my ego went, "Hey, I'm the fucking guy telling people to love each other. Fuck you." And
it's like, here I am empowering people, spreading love, and there's one asshole.
and I was like, "You fucking prick, fuck you." So I responded back with a "fuck you too." And then I went home and I thought about it, and I was like, I just lost. I missed the point. I thought, what would I do differently the next time? What's the lesson I didn't understand there? What did I miss? Well, it was that person doesn't feel worthy of love. That is why they gave me the finger.
Oh my gosh, my heart just exploded when you said that.
That's the
Wow.
person who needs that attention more than the rest of the people who are willingly able to participate.
Love it. That's the guy who has walls up to here, and somebody told him he wasn't worthy to experience love. And he has all this resistance. So his ego is like, fuck you, because I'm not letting that wall down, right?
And then I fell down to the vibration rather than having enough consciousness to rise him up.
Like, I see you, I love you. We want to uplift you.
Exactly. Yeah. You are included. You are included. You're not alone. So I thought, what will I do next time? I won't get offended. We'll see what happens.
There's a part of me that feels like I also love that you said fuck him too, because it's like this dichotomy, right? Like this duality that we live in. It's
yeah.
I love you, but fuck you because you said fuck me. Like, it's like you can, when you're the observer, you can see both, right? And you can be totally not judgmental about how your response manifests, because like you still went home and you didn't miss it because you ultimately got it, right? But in that moment, it was just like, dude, fuck you. Like, are you kidding me right now? Like,
I hear you because on the flip side of it, it could have been the lesson that he needed to learn as well. Like,
yeah, exactly.
So I think for me personally, I would find it more useful to be able to just not respond with a trigger.
Yeah, I feel that, where you're at that level of consciousness all the time, where that's just like your it's like your home vibration. So the need to react is not even there because you can instantly see through the illusion.
Exactly, yeah. But then also
So,
just makes me want to say you have to be okay with the fact that you're just human as well.
exactly.
And there will be times where you have to go, hey, fuck you, because
sometimes what I found and something that my guides have taught me, sometimes you need your ego. And they relate this to the concept of like self-sovereignty in the spiritual community, where a lot of times there's a lot of victimization that goes on, right? And so sometimes it's better to use a little bit of your ego rather than collapse into victimhood. Like if you would have been deeply hurt by the fact that that person flipped you off and it like destroyed you inside, and then you internalized that and you thought something was wrong with you, like in that moment, just using your ego to
deflect, I guess, is it?
yeah, like
Or shield.
of course it's not the highest consciousness thing you could do, but it's better than being a victim. It's better than being deeply wounded by somebody else, which a lot of people are. They internalize everything that other people do to them.
Yeah, that's a good, valid, solid point. It's your armor sometimes, and it is necessary.
It's like we have to be light warriors, you know? Sometimes it's love and light. Sometimes it's like bring the bazookas out, like
Yeah,
and
yeah.
sources within all of that, right? It just different moments will elicit something different from you. So just being okay with that.
There was a guru that I used to follow, and he said sometimes people can't hear the open hand; they can only hear the fist. And I thought, okay. And this makes me want to tell a story of a time when I boxed a fella in the face. So like I'm always on the search for truth, and I'm on the search to understand what is true masculinity. Does a true masculine man need violence? And is it necessary, or when is it necessary, is the question I would be asking. So I'd always like to choose wisdom first. And if that doesn't work, then maybe you might need to box somebody.
Yeah, because I like it's acknowledging the duality within this game, right? We're not living in a realm of absolute love, bliss, oneness. Like that is the ultimate truth. But it's like if somebody showed up at your house tonight trying to attack your family, in that moment, your divine masculine instinct is to protect. In that way, that's what you need to do in that moment, right? And so yeah, that sometimes that's just what it is, you know.
But I have a little story for you, right? Where this
Okay.
happened, where this came into my experience. So I went to a nightclub, and I had moved away from my hometown. I was living in a city, and in the city, I found it easier to be myself because people didn't judge me for the way I dressed or how I thought. So I'd come back home for a weekend, and I went out in my hometown. So I was back to the small minds. And I went into the nightclub, and then I had a mohawk at the time. So this guy started going at me, calling me all kinds of names. And I was like, all right, okay, whatever. Like I said, bro, there's something inside of you that feels a little bit off because I'm happy about being who I am. And whatever it is about my physical appearance that threatens you, you can't handle it, man. So you have to lash out. I feel like you look at me going, who's this different guy who seems happy? Fuck him. I'm going to tear him down. And he looked at me and he went, fuck you. And like, I can't remember exactly what happened, but he got right into my face. I don't know if anyone's ever gotten right into your face, where they kind of breathe on your face, and it irritated me. So I hit my box. And when I hit my box, I was like, immediately, I was like, fuck, I lost, like, because I said such lovely, wise words, boy. And then I hit my box. So I walked home and I was thinking, like, I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have been so internally weak that I lashed out. I should have been able to handle the emotions that I was going through and not have to lash out. Should be the resort. You only lash out if it's life or death or whatever, is what I was thinking. So I came home anyway, and my dad, black and white, stereotypical Irishman. He was like, what's wrong with you? And I said, Dad, I'm after boxing the fella, and I feel bad that I did it, like, because I don't think I should have lashed out, And he goes, well, did you talk to him? And I went, yeah. And did he listen? I went, no. Well, sometimes people just need a box. I went,
It's like the simplicity within that, right? Like
simple. Here I am walking home all heavy, and it was just black and white. Like, did you talk to him? Yes, I did. Did he listen? No. Well, then sometimes people just need it. I thought, okay.
What's interesting for me is like, if I do get to these moments where, let's say I'm in an argument or something like that with my partner, for example, something like that, soon as it's over, in 3 minutes, for me, it's like it never happened. So I think a lot of it is learning how to be in the present moment and not letting your mind go on like this whole like tangent of judgment. It's like, that was then, see what it was, use that as the example or something that you're going to use to further your consciousness. But after that, it's like, just be in the present moment. Like, it's not happening right now anymore. So why are you still thinking about, like, just, you expressed it, it showed you something, it's over now.
Yeah,
and
then
so,
you can move.
Yeah, like I don't hold on to things. Literally, something could be going on, 3 minutes later, it's like it never happened for me. Back to happy.
If I learn from it, then I can let it go. If I don't learn,
Yep.
then sometimes it might stay a bit longer. If I don't learn. Like, I traumatized myself one time by having a sexual experience I really didn't want to have.
You traumatized yourself.
Yeah, I pretty much did. Like,
Oh my gosh.
I gave in when I was down and out and depressed. I gave in to someone I wasn't attracted to, and I shouldn't have done it because it destroyed my sense of self.
Like your integrity.
Yeah, and
Like,
and I thought, like, yeah, okay, and it stayed with me for about 4 or 5 months. I told it on a podcast before. I was talking to a guy. He was talking about his trauma, and I was talking about this experience. It stayed with me for about 4 months. I would literally wake up and go, oh, I'd walk down the street and get a flashback and like actually have to sit down for a minute because
it's so interesting to hear that from a masculine perspective, that you felt traumatized by that. Because if we're looking at it from the feminine perspective, most women would say, oh, he's an asshole, he slept with her, he knew he wasn't attracted to her, like this and that. And then hearing you say something like that, it's like, this is a human being who was going through his own process, experience, etc., and actually carries some, or at the time, like, you carried some sort of shame or self-judgment around that, right? So we don't always see how people are impacted by the choices that they make. Like, you don't know what's going on with someone internally.
Yeah, exactly. And I kind of felt bad for that girl too. I was like, what vibration is she on if that's the only chance that she got to bang the fella she wanted to bang for ages? Like,
Well, you guys were both on the same vibration.
oh yeah, well, I thought, how sad is that that's the opportunity, and then I actually didn't follow through fully. I was like, damn, that's sad. I just felt sad for her as well, if you get me.
No, for sure.
I thought, like, because halfway through I gave up. I just had to, I actually ran off and got sick. So
in the middle of,
yeah, it really struck a chord. It really struck a chord with me. I really hurt myself. Oh, God damn it.
That is so funny. I think because I know you were telling me you were a star seed as well. And what I've been learning is that we're like encoded with this high level of integrity. So things that the average person wouldn't think twice about, we're like so in our heads about it. Like, why did I do that? I can't believe I just did that. Like, I'm supposed to be better than that. Like, it really like gets to us when we feel like we've acted below our like standard of just being like a good person. So it's interesting. You have to just develop this like radical self-compassion.
I've had a very interesting experience when it comes to sexual encounters because I had an addiction to it. So
Mhm.
I had an addiction to it, but I also had self-awareness and a desire not to hurt anyone. So that would manifest itself in very interesting ways.
Mhm.
And an example would have been, I was doing a show one night, and these two girls came up at the end of the night, and they were friends with each other, and they both wanted to kiss me, but I didn't want to choose because I didn't want any of them to feel left out. And I thought, I'm not going to choose because I was that guy who got left out. I don't want to leave anyone out. Like,
You know, a lot of people would say, oh, he was using his spirituality to justify kissing two girls. But to hear that you actually had that internal process of like, I don't want to offend or hurt one of these girls, I think that's so funny.
yeah, but like, how fucking egotistical of it is of me to think they're going to be destroyed because I didn't kiss them.
Oh my gosh, that's right. That's true too. That's true too.
But I end up kissing the two of them, which they didn't seem to mind. I just offered. I said, I told the truth. I said, I don't want to leave anybody out, so I'll kiss the two of you if you want it. And then they looked at each other and went, yeah, okay. I was like, sweet. Everyone's a winner.
Well, they didn't mind, so hey.
Yeah, I thought not of it, but I just had some funny experiences like that. I'm just going to revert back to more of the questions that I've written down here. And okay. How would the Arcturians describe addiction?
Let's see what they say. In all addiction, a person is simply craving their reunion with source energy, that relief of separation, the relief of a lack of love, a lack of a lack of something. So in any addiction, you are simply craving that feeling of completion. That is your true vibration, your true nature. So like when people are addicted to drugs, right? When they get high, they feel a release of resistance, and they feel those higher vibrations and they crave those higher vibrations, but they're not in a state of consciousness to where they can maintain those vibrations without the substance. And so they get addicted to that feeling, like that addicted to that relief, because when they sober up, their current reality, they can see their current reality and they can't deal with that. So they try to use the substance as an escape, to be back in like those higher vibrations, really. Is what I'm getting.
And so in turn, it then, so you're actually, I said, yeah, okay. So you're just to put it in, I like to say words that my father would hear.
Like practical words.
Yeah, grounded words. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, it does. Okay, let me see. Someone who has an addiction is coping with feeling unfulfilled in some way, okay. Feeling separate from something that they desire. So they're using, it could be sex, drugs, alcohol, whatever it is. They're trying to obtain something that they perceive themselves to not have in the moment, which okay. is love or affection or acceptance or whatever. People use these different tools to find fulfillment, because what the Arcturians are telling me is that we all are a part of source energy, connected to source energy. So naturally, in everything that we're doing, we're really just looking for that that feeling of home, that home frequency. And that's what drives our actions.
That makes me say then, that's interesting then, because you know, when you're conditioned as a child, you learn what you think love feels like. Therefore, does that mean that you grow up into an adult unconsciously looking for home, but unconsciously believing that it feels a certain way due to your conditioning?
It's like you're looking for something that, okay, what they're saying is like you're looking for something that on a soul level, you know, exists, but in your like human ego consciousness, you've never actually experienced this thing. So everything that you are doing is because you're looking for something that naturally, you know, it's like, you know, something is missing and you're looking for that thing that is missing. You don't know what it is. And I know this to be true because when I had an enlightening experience and had an ego death and experienced source, it felt like everything that I had always been looking for without knowing that I was looking for it.
When you say an ego death, what does that mean?
So an ego death is when you're human, you can perceive yourself beyond your human personality. You're the person that you were, the name that was given to you, the religion that was given to you, the race, your identity basically dies because you dissolve into source. You remember who you were before you came into this physical body. So when that happened to me, I could see that up until that point in my life, I had always, in everything that I did, I had been looking for this feeling of pure, unconditional love that is beyond human words. I had been looking for my true self. We're all looking for our true self.
Just in
different form, different ways.
Different
exactly.
things, yeah.
Exactly.
And how did you have that ego death? What were you doing?
So I've had multiple experiences with psychedelics. So I've had ego deaths on psychedelics. I've had it just in meditation by myself where this energy will creep up on me. It actually happened to me yesterday in a very subtle way. So I don't know, as I expand on my path, it happens more frequently, but it's more like, it's like soft and like, it kind of just like creeps up on me. It's not like, oh my gosh, I just did like an acid trip and like everything just deconstructed. And I feel like what's real. It's just more of like you expand into this fifth dimensional consciousness. So that just becomes your natural frequency. So it doesn't seem as like,
it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah, it's not that destabilizing anymore.
It's because it's okay. But this leads me to another question I'd written down. So 3D, 4D, and 5D, what is the difference?
So when we talk about, so the D stands for dimension, and you can look at dimensions in terms of density. So everything within existence is just light. Like light is everything. The physical matter that we perceive in our reality, it's just like frozen light. It's been condensed down into matter, something physical, something hard. For something to be hard and physical, the vibration has to slow down. So I'll give you guys an example. When it comes to dimensions, it's not like stacked like that, the way that we think it. It's actually all here right now at the same time in the same place, but vibrating at different frequencies. So there are certain things around us that we can't see with our physical eye because our physical eye cannot pick up on that vibrational frequency. But if we were to speed ourselves up to that vibration, then different things would be perceivable to us. Or it's just like, we've all experienced this, like when things move really fast, they disappear because the frequency just, it's so high that your physical eye can't perceive it, but it's still happening. It's still there. So the dimensions are just different vibrational frequencies that are different levels of consciousness, meaning you can perceive things from a different vibration. So third density, 3D, third dimension is physical matter. Fourth dimension would be more like astral, and then fifth dimensional is really non-physical.
And what's the difference between astral and non-physical?
The consciousness, just different states of consciousness. In the fourth dimensional realm, you can still be, you're just awakened to a certain point, right? So
Okay.
a good example of the fourth dimension would be someone who has passed away. So they're non-physical, but they haven't, they will be like an earthbound soul or something like that. That's
Cool.
the best way I can explain it, because they haven't like
Leveled up to 5D, yeah.
yeah, exactly.
So they're stuck on level 4. It's like a computer game, like they're on level 4.
Exactly. But
it's not, I feel like you're going to say that it's not one is better than the other. It's just a level.
it's just an experience. And what happens is their guides will usually come get them and like pull them into the fifth dimension, or pull them into like what we refer to as heaven. Because a lot of times when people pass away, they don't realize that they're dead. Like that's what they're telling me. Like they don't realize that they are now in a new dimension. So when people experience like hauntings, or they hear things in their house or something like that, a lot of the times it's just these spirits who are confused. They don't realize like what state that they're in. So if you are experiencing that, you can reach out to me, and there are some people who can help you send those spirits home.
Class. I witnessed my mom passing there a few months back, and in the journey up to it, I spent a year with her because she had cancer, so she was going to.
Wow.
So we knew it was coming, but in the year up to it, I spent the year pretty much talking to her about death and life, and trying to help her be less afraid. And I was trying to play the role of counselor, you know, and just be there. And I wanted to leave no stone unturned. But I remember I had a conversation with her where she was having a day where she was afraid. And I told her, like I said, if you're ever, because no one else would really talk about that, you know, everyone would just go.
Sorry.
So no one else would really talk about it because they'd be kind of too afraid. So I was just saying to her, I said, "Ma'am, when you pass, you're going to come out of the body, realize you've done this many times before, and you're just going to return back home. You're going to go back to source." I said, imagine consciousness is like the ocean. You're going to go back into the ocean. That's it. And there's nothing to fear. I know that from the perspective you're in, you do fear it. That's okay. But once you leave that body, you're going to go, my son was telling me the truth all along.
So sorry to hear that your mom passed away, even though we know there's nothing truly sad or bad about that, but I just want to be respectful to your process with that. How was it for you from your level of consciousness? Because I always think about this. I haven't experienced a close death yet. Were you still like emotionally, like how did you feel? Or did you truly feel like comfortable with it?
I was comfortable with it. I was pretty sick myself. I have ulcerative colitis, so I had a flare up and I had to come home. So I was sick with her, and it was divine timing, because if I didn't get sick, I wouldn't have been home with her. So perfect. But from my experience of it, I thought it was actually quite beautiful, the actual passing itself.
Okay.
It erased my fears of death, or some of them, and it felt like, now anyone who has seen anyone pass from cancer, it's a horrible experience. It's horrible to see someone in that state. It's not nice. Because the poor woman was helpless, you know, and that wasn't nice to see. But what I will say was the actual moment of passing was beautiful. I felt the energy leave, and when the energy left, I could feel the calmness. I felt how I know I can describe it too, right, without having to explain myself, but I felt serenity and happiness, and that was because I could feel that, I felt joy.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. And my fear of death, well, when I had my ego death, that's basically what happened. Like, I was freed from this physical body and I reunited with source. So after that, I knew when people die, this is what they're going to experience, which is the greatest experience. Like, it's so unfathomable. So it's like, I know what's in store for everybody. So it's not something that's like sad, like a saddening thing, you know. It's like you get to drop your ego, you drop the body, and you're back in your pure state of being. And it's your soul's greatest excitement to return back to that form. It's like, it's incredible.
It was funny because I would meet people on the street for weeks after, because in small town Ireland, everybody knows everybody, and it's all, you know.
Yeah.
How are you? How are you? And everybody knows what's going on, essentially. And I remember 2 weeks after I'm walking on the street, and this woman comes over to me to say sorry for your loss, right? And I used to say to people, like, I've actually gained a lot from the experience. Then I felt like I had to stop saying that because they didn't get what I meant.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I don't want people to think I'm this cold motherfucker
Right.
who doesn't care, because of course I do. I was able to see that a lot came from the experiences that we shared. And this woman came up to me and started crying. This is like 2 or 3 weeks after. And she starts crying. And I end up having to console her and tell her, like, it's okay, love.
Wow.
And I was like, it was my mom, like, I was
That
like,
is so funny.
love, it's okay. It was actually a beautiful experience, and told her all the positive stuff. Like, she was relating it back to herself and her own mom. And
you know, a lot of the grief around death is because we're gonna miss that person more so than that person's gonna be in heaven. So we're crying because we're gonna miss them. Like, that's really what it's about. But they're off and they're having like this cosmic party, right? Like, they're so excited that they just had this experience and everything that the soul learned from this experience, and they're back with their soul family, with source and all these beings, and it's beautiful. But we're like, fuck, like, I'm still on earth. Like, I want you to be here with me.
Come on, like, who am I going to ring now when I get a new outfit? Like, who am I going to go, hey, do you like this?
But so the Arcturians are telling me that you and your mom kind of plan to have that experience together. And so you being there for her in those moments of death and giving her you were like her, they're saying like her earth angel when that was happening for her. So that was really, really beautiful. And she's in infinite gratitude to you.
Well, thanks, ma'am. That makes me want to talk about soul contracts.
Okay.
So this concept, I absolutely love it, man. It just blew my mind. The time I heard of this, I was like, this makes so much sense. Oh my God, okay, like a soul contract. How could you explain that to somebody who's skeptical about it?
It's this explain it to someone who's skeptical about it is what's throwing me off.
Oh yeah, it's tripped up. It tripped up.
I don't think there's any way to,
Well, I guess you just can only say it the way it
you
is.
can only say it how it is, and
Yeah.
people have to.
It's up to them after that.
Exactly, but essentially with soul contracts, it's, so put it this way. Let's say you and me are in heaven, right? We're both a couple souls laying around, chilling. We're like, okay, everything is perfect here. Everything is beautiful. This is great, but I'm getting a little bored. Like, I want to roll the dice a little bit, and I need to learn. I want to learn about forgiveness. And another soul comes along and they say, oh, okay, I want to learn about that too. Like, I want to learn, I want to have the experiential lesson of forgiveness. Maybe you want to learn how to forgive someone else, and then maybe I want to learn how to forgive myself because I've done something to you. So we got a contract, because we're both getting what we need out of it. And that's basically how soul contracts work. And typically the people that you have these soul contracts with are people in your soul family, your soul tribe, people that you're actually, that you, I don't want to say love the most, because love is, love is everything, but the souls that you have a very close, I'm just going to say you're very close in frequency. So that connection is there. So it's like you're willing to play that role for them, and they're willing to play that role for you. And that is the unconditional love being expressed, the willingness to lower your vibration enough to be the villain or whatever that somebody needs to play that character. And that's what we're all doing. We've all chosen to forget who we are, to lower our vibrations, come into this density, and
Figure it
walk
out.
each other home. Yeah.
Yeah.
And play the role, play the bad guy, if you will.
Yeah. I love that because I was explaining to someone before that, like I said, I don't hate that toxic experience that I had with my ex-girlfriend, because we had a soul contract for that experience. Like,
Mhm.
she had to come in and I had to get fucked up enough for me to learn about myself.
Mhm.
We decided that. I was like, if you don't learn this by by this stage of your life, I'm gonna come in and fuck you up by.
Exactly. Definitely with our parents. My relationship with my parents, like being someone who went through an ego death and a spiritual awakening, I could just see how everything that irritated me about those relationships contributed to my greatest expansion. They were my greatest teachers. And in that way, I could see the unconditional love of their soul to play those roles for me. Even when it's painful, because a lot of times our parents are our first experience of like a heartbreak, right? They say something that hurts you, they do something that hurts you, they traumatize you in some sort of way. And you're like, oh my gosh, I just want to get the fuck out of here, right?
Yeah.
But as you ascend, you're like, wow, that taught me so much. Like having that, especially when you're experiencing these relationships from a more conscious point of view, you can really see everything that is giving to you. Like it's giving you this self-mastery that otherwise would not be attainable. And you could just see through the role in the character, and you're just like, I love you because of who I am now.
It makes me want to say you have to become a champion of perspective in order to keep going in that direction. Like, you need to have the desire, first of all, the willingness and the desire to understand. I think that's just once you have that, it will arrive. Like,
For sure. And it's not easy. It can be really triggering. I mean, our parents can say some pretty fucked up things and do some pretty fucked up things, because you got to realize they're operating from their level of consciousness too.
Yeah.
And so when you can see, okay, well, you're working from your level of consciousness, you're doing the best you can do. I can't really expect more from you, even though we have these assigned roles of parent, child, etc. Most of us are more evolved than our parents, and that's just the truth, because we're coming back more evolved, so we are more we're more evolved than our parents, and realizing that and having the compassion to work around all of that.
I used to say that to my mom, like I said, the only difference between me and you is the times that we grew up in. If the role was reversed, you'd be the one who's more open, or more you'd be the one with more of the wisdom. So because the conditions you grew up under made it harder for
Right.
you to expand, whereas the conditions I grew up under made it easier for me because
And
the
our
time.
kid, like when you and I have kids, there are going to be some things that unconsciously we're going to traumatize them possibly in some sort of way. And because they're more evolved, they're going to teach us about some of the shit that we've been doing that they're
And
like,
so yeah,
you know what I mean? So it's just like this process of evolution.
it's really funny. That's interesting because my sister has 3 kids, and they'd call in a lot. And the little guy, I used to bring him to the shop, and I love hanging out with him because he's really funny and he's really cute, like, but he can kind of sometimes be a bit much because he's just full of energy, just doesn't stop. You have to constantly. But one day I was walking to the shop and I was still kind of ill at the time, so I couldn't actually go into the shop for I didn't have my mask either, so I couldn't. And he couldn't understand why we couldn't go into the shop, and I was trying to explain it to him. So he stopped and just started crying in the middle of the estate, screaming crying like, ah! And I was in my head going, is this that one of those traumatic moments now he's going to be fucked up about when he's older? How do I handle this? I just looked at him and I went, buddy, I don't want to traumatize you now when you're older. Like, can we just be friends now and not make this a scary situation? Anyway, I goes, I can't go to the shop, but I need you to be my friend and come back to the house with me. And he came back to the house then. But it's just, I was like, oh my God, when I become a parent, it's going to be hilarious.
Like you're going to stop like mid-sentence, like
oh my God. No, you are enough. I didn't mean that.
I don't want to traumatize him, but I want to traumatize him.
What's the right step? Hang on, let me meditate there for an hour. I'll come back to you.
That is so funny. It's going to be, I'm really excited about parenthood. I'm like, I know it's going to teach me so much. So I'm kind of nervous, but I'm also excited. So we'll see what happens.
I think you'd be a class man.
Oh, thank you.
I feel
You'll be a phenomenal father.
Thanks, bye. I've been practicing.
Right?
I just I actually can't wait for that experience. Well, I can wait, but it'll be exciting.
Hilarious.
I'm getting my financial life together so I can facilitate that.
Definitely.
That's my plan. Okay, I have more questions.
So I'm on a time constraint. I have I was going to say 5 minutes.
Okay. That's what I was going to say, the same thing as well. How long have we been talking for?
I think for probably an hour, because I know we hopped. Oh no, wait, no, longer. We got on at 1. Has it almost been 2 hours? Yeah.
So I'll release this in 2 parts because I like to put up hour-long ones, and I'll put this out tomorrow and the next one out next week.
Okay, that's perfect.
Part 1 and part 2, because there's a lot in it. It's class.
Yeah, a lot. We gave a lot.
it's and it. Do you know what? This helps me to understand that time is an illusion. There's just flow. So what is for 5 minutes, what is the one question that really has to be asked? Okay, so so 2 people asked me to ask you this question.
Okay.
How do you connect to your guides is the question that 2 people asked me to ask.
Through telepathy, emotions, So I'm clairsentient, so like feelings, it's just like intuitive feeling, pictures, and I don't hear a voice, so it's not like a creepy voice in my head, but it's like a voice in my own voice, but I know it's not my voice, if that makes sense.
Yeah, okay.
So like it's like I hear words, but in my voice. So I have to be in a very like present tense state to just hear it and not confuse it with like my own thoughts.
Okay.
But I also feel this like channel of energy in the center of my head. So it's like I know when I'm channeling because I feel the downloads basically.
Okay. So with that feeling and with the thoughts, you were able to recognize it.
Yeah, like it all just happens so fast and all together. It's hard for me to like explain it to you guys and like break it down. But it's just like this intuitive knowing. You're like, and what my guys are telling me is that you all have experienced this where you received a download and you're like, okay, I know that was a download because it just like comes. And they do things like they'll like, for an example, with that, when I was just like, oh, my guys are saying XYZ, they'll just pop something in my consciousness that I already understand, like something that's already within my field, like my knowledge bank, if you will, and like point me in that direction to talk about it.
Ah, okay, okay.
If that makes
Yeah,
sense.
yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So before we wrap it up, where can people find you?
Sure. You guys can follow me over at Sacredhustle 2_. I'm launching my website within the next 2 weeks. I have some cool things coming out, one of which being a manifestation coaching membership. So it's going to be like a monthly subscription just to give you access to direct communication with spirit at a very affordable price on a monthly basis, and create community, So there's going to be a group chat, weekly group meetings, things like that. Because as you start to expand and ascend, you can feel isolated, and I want to change that within the spiritual community where people feel like they have a safe space to just explore everything that they're coming into. Because for me, I never had that. It was like, I mean, I did create it for myself because I used to have like a huge Twitter following, and then I created a group chat from there, and like these became like my lifelong friends that I still talk to this day. But in my actual physical reality, it always felt like I was living a double life, and it still does, for the most part. But yeah, I think it's time for us to unite in the physical, connect, create these relationships, and like just be collaborative.
I feel that. I actually ended up having a group chat before, and it turned into about 50 people, and we all used to hang out with each other the whole time. But
That's awesome.
it was unreal. I loved it, and I felt like I was kind of like the leader of it. But
Yeah,
it turned out to be a toxic lesson.
you get some egos in there, definitely, and then that's when I kicked them out. So I had a group of like 80 people that's literally now like 5.
Yeah. So I learned a lot as well. It got very dark, let's say. Started out with great intentions, and it got very dark.
Wow.
And I thought that was what it showed me was it was all of my childhood insecurities playing out in front of me, so I could heal and become a better leader. So it showed me first. I thought my intention was pure, but it was born out of a desire to be seen, heard, and loved, from the ego perspective, rather than it was for me rather than an offering, if that makes sense.
It does.
Simply.
Like it was for me, right? For me to experience my power, or what felt like power.
Yeah, I was broken, so I wasn't able to give without needing that in return.
Yeah, but I wouldn't say it was purely out of a negative intention, right? Like I feel like our desires are always pointing us in the right direction, even if there is, you haven't uncovered like all of the hidden ego within a desire, I feel like that the energy of a desire is like, if you move in this direction, this experience is also going to contain everything that you do need to see to heal. So it's like, you know, you're just following your highest excitement.
Yeah, it was pretty class. Okay, because if we keep talking, we'll never
Yeah,
stop.
yeah. We going on all these different deep tangents. We gotta like.
I love it. I love it. So we were even talking before we started recording as well. Like, we've been here for ages.
I know.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on, and I'm gonna have to probably reach out to you again, and we'll do it again in the future if you want. Like,
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. Yeah, you and I have to, maybe we can do an Instagram live together so my audience can be exposed to you as well. And I don't know, we can talk about anything.
yeah, I'm down for that. 100%.
I want you to talk about the divine masculine. Actually, I just got that. Perfect.
I'm down for that. 100.
All right, we got to pencil it in.
Cool. Yeah, I can make time.
Because I think the divine masculine is so misunderstood, right? And from my feminine perspective, there's only so much I can say about it. But I think there's so much that we don't understand that goes on within the inner masculine world of, we just don't understand it, right?
Yeah, I feel that. And it's a discussion that needs to be had from a place of non-judgment, of course.
Exactly.
Because I see a lot of divide right now as well in that. Even today on Facebook, I was dealing with, but seen a comment from a woman saying men always treat women such and such a way.
Oh my God. We'll have to get into that.
So I was kind of like, there needs to be a shift in perspective, and because that's lopsided.
Is it that men always treat women like shit, or is it that men are reflecting women's beliefs and insecurities within themselves that have been programmed and conditioned? I just talked about this last week. I did a divine feminine activation.
That is exactly the conversation that needs to be had.
So, you know, you feel it, we got to have it. It'll be great. It'll be like divine feminine and divine masculine having an expansive conversation.
Sounds like that's class, yeah.
We gotta do it.
If that was a meal, I would eat it. That's class.
I love that. I love that. Love that. If it was a meal, I would eat it.
Please don't feed the demons. They get big and you only see them. Please don't feed the demons. Accepting them's the only way to defeat them.